Okay. Load discovery. All right. So this is the assignment that is due on Thursday, I believe I decided for. But again, given the times, it'll be a situation where we're not necessarily adhering too much to the deadline policies, but those people who do turn things in on time, those folks will be noted and rewarded. Okay, so keep that in mind. All right. So gonna look forward. We're looking here and we're seeing that the objective of today's lesson, the students are able to analyze the text. And again, like analysis is breaking things down into its parts, interpreting each part, and then looking at the connections, both between like the parts as well as like to the functioning of the entire thing. And what you're doing is you're using that process of analysis for implicit, meaning that it's not explicitly stated, and then explicit, which means that it is explicitly stated. Interpretation is using grammatical reading as micro inferences, right? So you like these connections that are being made between individual ideas, right? So either individual ideas are either being explicit, in other words, that they're being obviously told to you, or implicit, where it's like you're going to have to make the connections and then from those connections understand like what's being said that's not so obvious. So then you're drawing inferences between the text and other portions of the text as well, right? So all the other stuff, none of this like exists in isolation. So what's happening here is obviously going to be related as well to the previous parts and as well as later parts. So then understanding how those parts are related in terms of different types of relationships with inferences, cause and effect, reasons and conditions, providing motivation, all these types of things, right? Okay, as well as the overall concept of agency, and again, agency being the subject of agency, the object of agency. So you're going to answer the following questions in complete sentences. In your answer, refer to specific portions of the text, but do not quote, right? So you're not quoting. More so interested in whether or not you can interpret things, like your own thinking rather than Shakespeare's thinking. And rather than that, paraphrase the portions that support your answers and cite the lines that you paraphrase. All right. So, first question being, how does Macbeth use agency to manipulate the murderers in this portion of the text? Second, in what way is his manipulation similar to Witch's manipulation of Macbeth? And third is, in what way is it similar to Lady Macbeth's manipulation of her husband? Okay. So again, agency being like the subject of agency and the object of agency. So again, the subject of agency being like this idea that, you are in charge of your destiny. You are in charge of how you are being identified by the world. You are in charge of how the world sees you and how you see the world. And in some cases, like being the subject of agency also means you're in charge of how the world sees itself, right? That sense of control. And then the object of agency is that point where like it's pretty much the opposite, like it's the antithesis of that. So with the object of agency, like other things identify you, other things control, other things, manipulate how you see yourself, and more so than you identifying the world identifies you. Right? Okay. So, how's Macbeth used agency to manipulate the murders in this portion of the text? And in what the murderer is being who he's talking to? And in what way is his manipulation similar to the witch's manipulation of Macbeth? Okay, so we've talked about that previous to this. And in what ways is it similar to Lady Macbeth's manipulation of her husband, which we've also talked about sort of ad nauseam. Okay, so Macbeth, Act 3, Scene 1, lines 78 through 162. Okay, make sure you can still see here. Okay. Alright. So re-enter, attendant with two murderers. Now go to the door, stay here. Was it not yesterday that we spoke together? And the first murder says it was. So please, your highness. Well, then now you have considered of my speeches. Then was he in times past which held you under fortune, which you thought had been our innocent self. Okay, so we want to stop there, right? Here, when he says he, and again, these murders are like, he kind of says it more explicitly later, but these murders are here to kill who, right? We've already talked about this, like it's no surprise. They're here to kill Banquo. So the he is Banquo. So it was he in the times past which held you under fortune, which you thought had been our innocent self. All right. So think about this. What is Macbeth saying here? And he says it was Banquo in times past which held you under such fortune. So under fortune, so like misfortune, so a lack of fortune, lack of wealth, lack of good times, lack of luck, a lack of opportunity, right? Which you had thought had been our innocent self. So you thought, oh, it's, Macbeth's fault, right? But really, he's saying, Macbeth is saying to these murderers, it's Banquo's fault. Okay. Consider this when we're going back to this idea of manipulation. Right, so we're gonna highlight that in yellow. Right? And think about how that played out. In terms of how people manipulate others and what that means in terms of agency. So keep that in mind. So this is around line 85. Okay, in the text I provided you portions of text, the same text. This I made good to you in our last conference. Passed in probation with you. How you were born in hand, how crossed the instruments, how wrought with them all things else that might to self, to half a soul, and to a notion craze, say, thus did Banquo. So now he explicitly says it, right? Banquo is the reason that, you guys, and a little micro difference between reading. So, one of the things that you want to make sure that you're doing when you're reading, I'll see if I can reduce that's not what I meant to do. Okay, hold on a second. Here we go. And then we want to do that. Come on. There we go. Okay. So thus did Banquo, right? So basically, again, like, you want to make an inference here. Like, I'm not going to tell you what the inference is. I'm going to leave those up to you as you're writing your paper. But it says that it was he in times past which held you under fortune, which you thought had been our innocent self. And this I made good to you in our last conference. And then he ends it off with, thus did Banquo, right? So, no one, he's saying Banquo is the he, right? That's the micro inference when you're reading this, right? But then number two, how does this refer back to this idea of manipulation and agency? Okay, that's the other inference. All right, says you have made it known to us, right? So it says the first murderer, and Macbeth says, I did so, and went further, which is now our point of second meeting. Do you find our patience so predominant in our nature that you let us go? Are you so gospel to pray for this good man and for his issue? His issue again being his son, right? Whose heavy hand hath bowed you to the grave and beggared yours forever, right? So again, let's just make sure I'm not making a there you go. Whose heavy hand has bowed you to the grave. Oh, come on. I'm not very used to this mouse. There we go. Whose heavy hand had bowed you to the grave and beggared yours forever. Right? So again, he's just like, for this good man, you made it known to us, right? This is also interesting. I'm thinking about it. Like, who's making it known? And you might want to think about like how that's related back to this. So it's like you made it known to us, this situation, right? Meaning that knowledge came from who? Right? The knowledge came from Macbeth. Right? And how does that go back towards manipulation? It says, whose heavy hand hath bowed you to the grave and beggared yours forever. Right? We are men, my liege. Then he actually, which kind of goes back to one of these folks as well, right? It says, we are men, my liege. And then he says, in the catalog, ye go for men, right? In other words, yeah, you're men. That's the different, the dictionary in the catalog. That's the dictionary definition of man, right? And then he says this, right? He says, as hounds and greyhounds and mongrels and spaniels and curs and slogs and water rugs and demi-wolves, and these are all types of, as he pretty much says it, explicitly, are clept all by the name of dogs, right? Now, there's an inference here, right? The first murder says, we are men, my liege, right? It's like in the definition, you go for men. And then he starts mentioning a bunch of different types of dogs, right? Now, one reading of this is like, oh, there are different types of dogs, so therefore there are different types of men, right? But then there's a little bit more of an implicit, ironic meaning that he's trying to imply here as well. Okay. He says the valued file distinguishes the swift, the slow, the subtle, housekeeper, the hunter, everyone according to the gift which bounteous nature hath in him chose. Now, let me get into this part. Okay. Have you ever played chess? And here's the other word down here. Chess is played according to the rank and the file, right? The rank in the file would be like, so you have the forward position and then you have the side positions, right? Think about how like a chessboard is like all those squares, right? And I'm pretty sure maybe if you have played chess, people say A1, B4, all these other things. So like the numbers being one thing, the rank and file, and the alphabet being something else in the rank and file. Okay. Now, he's talking about the fact that, like, when he says the valued file distinguishes the swift, the slow, the subtle, the housekeeper, the hunter, everyone according to the gift which bounteous nature, right? Put a bold around that. The gift with bounteous, and actually nature could be, it's lowercase here, but the way that he's using it, okay, there we go. The way that he's using it, he says the gift with bounteous nature. It could be uppercase. It could be personified. It could be like, okay, nature is actually doing something. There's something that nature intends, right? And if you are a housekeeper versus a hunter versus a king, and again, there's the implication here, right? Versus what he's actually saying. According to have chosen, then it's something that nature, or who? God has decided that that's the way it's supposed to be, right? And if you are in a specific position, it's because those are your qualities. You don't have it in you to be anything better, right? So keeping going, whereby he does receive particular addition from the bill that writes him them all alike, and so of men, right? So he's saying this of dogs, and then so of men, right? The bill writes them alike, but okay, back up. See, that's the thing I'm trying to avoid doing. Okay. Here we go. It writes them all alike. So when he and again, right, this is all in response to this idea of we are men, my liege, right? So he's just like, oh, well, yeah, according to like the dictionary, you guys are men, right? but according to like who you are, the quality of life. Yeah, when you say you're a man, that doesn't mean it's the same type of man that I am, Ivan, right? My station is different, my rank is different, right? So I will put that business in your bosoms, those executions whose execution takes your enemy off, grapples you to the heart and love of us who wear our health so sickly in his life, which in his death were perfect. Right? So get rid of your enemy, right? Take some agency, whose execution takes your enemy off. Get rid of your enemy, right? And grapples you to the heart and love of us. And with his death, your lives will be better. Right? So he's telling them, the way to have agency over your life, the way to actually have some control over your life is to get rid of, the enemy that is pretty much, going way back here, right? Pretty much making your lives, under fortune. Now, so this is going back to this. Now, the second murder says, I am one, my liege, whom the vile blows and buffets of the world have so incensed that I'm reckless, that I do spite the world. I love this passage. It reminds me of so many people that I know that feel this way, right? So related to, because I am one, my liege, with vile blows and buffets of the world. So when he says vile blows and buffets of the world, in other words, he feels as though he's been beaten down. He feels as though he has been, hurt and abused, right? And so incensed. It made me so mad. But when you're mad to the point where he's not thinking straight, and that's huge, right? That also goes into this idea of, right? So I'm so incensed, right? It's made me so angry that I'm not thinking straight, that I am reckless, right? I'll do whatever. Right? So when you're incensed, you're so mad, you're not really, it's like you're just all emotion and not really a lot of thought. And reckless, what I do to spite the world, right? He just wants to destroy. And then the first verse says, I am so weary with disasters. I'm so tired, right? So weary, being tired. I'm so tired of, the disasters that I faced, right? In this world. Tugged with fortune. There's a great one right there. Tugged with fortune, which is kind of ironic that he said this in this conversation. Tugged with fortune, that I would set my lie on any chance to mend or be rid of it, right? So he feels like, so when you're tugged, and you tug like you're pulled, like almost like with a leash. You think about like a dog, like anybody who has like a pet, right? And sometimes like when you're walking your pet and the pet wants to go in one direction and you want to go in another direction, and he starts pulling on the leash and you start tugging at him, right? But that's how he feels. He feels hugged with fortune. And so like he feels like he has no control. He feels like he has no agency there, right? That I would set my lie on any chance. Right? And who's giving him, quote unquote, this chance right now? Macbeth. Right? Macbeth is giving him the chance right now to mend it or be rid of it. So Macbeth says, both of you know Banquo is your enemy. Right? This idea that he sets them upon Banquo as being the enemy. And then both murderers say, true, my lord. Right? Which is also very interesting here. So Macbeth says, so is he mine, and in such bloody distance that every minute of his being thrust against my nearest of life. And though I could set with bare face power sweep him from my sight, and bid my will avouch it, yet I must not, for certain friends that are his and mine, whose loves I may not drop, but wail his fall, who I myself struck down, and thus it is, and thence it is, that I to your assistance do make love, masking the business from the kind eye for sundry weighty reasons. So basically, again, what he's saying here is the fact that, the only reason he's not doing this is because of the fact that, they're part of the same clique, they know the same people, and, he doesn't want to alienate the common friends that they have, by turning against Banquo, and that's the only reason why he's turning towards them, right? Because of the fact that, they have this common enemy, this common foe. So he is mine. Right. Right. So he says, we shall, my lord, perform what you command us, right? And though our lives, now again, at this point, and I think this is something that, it's a very sort of often overlooked portion of this play. And I find this portion of the play pretty ironic, given the larger, issue that is going on. And the reason that I ask these three questions really is because of the fact that rather than giving an essay, is because of the fact that this isn't really part of Macbeth's character arc, but it does really sort of reflect on what is actually going on with Macbeth, especially with Lady Macbeth as well as the witches. And reflect in a sort of ironic way here. And I'll leave it to you to figure out what that irony actually is. So then he says, we shall perform. So he's not paying. They're not, it's like, are they doing this because he's paying them? That was my point. Are they doing this because he's paying them? No, right? It's not because he's paying them. I mean, he might be slipping some coin in their purses or things like that, and actually something else happened later on that will be interesting. But the whole point of him meeting with them like this is because of the fact that they're being motivated, right, to take charge of their lives, okay, to have some agency. So then Macbeth says, though our lives, your spirit's mind shine through you. Within this hour at most, I will advise you were to plant yourselves, acquaint you with the perfect spy of the time. Moment for it must be done tonight, right? Let's get it done tonight. And something from the palace, right? So in other words, something from his castle. Always thought that I require a clearness, right? So, clearness of thought, right? And with him to leave no rubs or botches in the work. Don't make any mistakes. Fleance his son, right? And again, we're connecting this back to the speech that he just gave, right? Because, yeah, part of it is with Banquo, but the other part is the fact of the speech he just gave pretty much deals with this, right? At the beginning of Act 3. Pretty much deals with this. So Fleance's son that keeps him company, whose absence is no less material to me than his father's, must embrace the fate of that dark hour. In other words, he must die. Resolve yourselves apart. I will come to you anon. We are resolved, my lord. Call upon the straight to abide within. It's concluded. Banquo, thy soul's flight, if it find heaven, must find it out tonight. Okay. Alright, so I left another doc, and with each doc, you're going to answer the questions that are here. So again, how does Macbeth use agency to manipulate the murders in this portion of text?